let me start by saying I was going to do something on poetry, another one on poetry and music that came out of that. And this, I assume some of you did not see the one that I did earlier than that. I think Matt, I showed you a couple of things of it.
Yeah.
But you know, the events of these last days are really, really powerfully changing. I mean, I just can't help myself that my life has changed because of this. It's just, I think everybody's life is. It's something that we can't deny, I think. And so with that, I changed the title and changed some of the focus of this lecture, as you could probably see on the title page. Mima Amakim, out of the depths. I believe it's Psalm 115. I'm not sure. I should have checked on that, but I don't remember the number. But it's definitely one of the Psalms. Out of the depths. Just want to see how you do this. There we go. We start with this. You know, I have to say, admit to myself that I'm so proud of having introduced this music. I see two of you at least that have sung it. That is you. That is your voices. Certainly the people that I'm seeing on the screen that have sung it. And I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come? My help comes from God who made heaven and earth. And I thought to start this talk with this psalm because I have no other words except to say that utter that. So maybe a few other words, and they come in another psalm, Psalm 137. The SI and I was Psalm 121. We utter psalms because psalms contain the whole cornucopia of feelings of emotion of the Jewish people in my mind. Psalm 137. Let's just listen. Psalm 137. So there's always been a yearning for those in the Galut, those not in Eretz Yisrael, looking up as to the mountains, always, certainly during times of strife, mostly when you think about all the horrible, inhumane activities that were perpetrated on the Jewish people in Europe for sure, in Eastern Europe, and then certainly in Germany. There was no other place to go. The America was far away, and certainly when you think about Eastern Europe, Israel was a place that was far, maybe the furthest place in the world, but closer, and so many. There are 5 aliyot, periods of aliyot from Eastern Europe to Israel over the course of 70, 80 years. And certainly many of those people came from Eastern Europe. Most of them came from Eastern Europe, and that's constitutes a large part of the population in Israel at this point. Zogni Kaimlo is one of those songs that talks about there was a desperation about it, and it was adopted by a number of Jewish partisan groups operating in Eastern Europe, and it became a symbol of resistance against Nazi Germany, their persecution of the Jews in the Shoah. Composer, and actually he didn't compose the melody. His name was Glick. He composed the music. Actually, the music was composed by a pre-war song written by the Pokras brothers. They were kind of a theater group, and they were actually brothers. And it actually was named initially into a Cossack song titled, the first line, "These aren't clouds, but thunderclouds." And the original song itself has a history that's pretty typical of Soviet times. The song was written in the fall of 1936, and that's 6 years or so before Hirsch Glick wrote the poetry to Zogni Kaimlo. Performed in 1937, and it was a Soviet documentary called Sons of the Working People about the 1936 military exercises of the Red Army. So, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. And if you really think about it without the Jewish text, it's totally Russian. Okay, so in the Soviet Union, it was first publicly performed in 1949 by Paul Robeson, out of all people, under the title "The Song of the Warsaw Ghetto." And what is interesting about that is Hirsch Glick wrote it when he was in the Vilna Ghetto in 1943. He was a young inmate he wrote it for there was some music allowed making there. There was a group called the Vilna Jewish United Partisan Organization. And so there you go. And Zogni Kaimlo, the title, means never say, don't say. And it's derived from the first line of the song that Glick wrote. So let's listen. I want you to this has the English translation, and I want you to think about present day events when you listen to the translation of this song.
Als du gehst dem letzten Weg, wenn im Himmel bleiene verstellen Leute, kommen wird noch unser Haus gewählte schon. Es wird ab heut von unser Tod mir seinen Tod. Kommen wird noch unser Haus gewählte schon. Es wird ab heut von unser Tod mir seinen Tod. Grünen Und wo wir fahren, dieser Spritz von unser Blut. Sprossen wird noch unser Gwurde, unser Mut. Und wo wir fahren, dieser Spritz von unser Blut. Sprossen wird noch unser Gwurde, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgensonne begilden uns dem Heim. Der schwarze Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Pein. Und heute versammelt wird die Sonne in dem Kajot. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. Und heute versammelt wird die Sonne in dem Kajot. Wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von dort zu dort. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Es ist nicht kein Lied von a Fegel auf der Frei. Das hat der Volk zwischen Paar und dicke Welt. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Ganes in die Hände. Das hat der Volk zwischen Paar und dicke Welt. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Ganes in die Hände. Der Pfarr sagt keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Wenn Himmeln bleien, Stellen bläuet kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schor. Es wird erbeugt an unser Trott, wir seinen Dor. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schor. Es wird erbeugt an unser Trott, wir seinen Dor.
I love this video. The one thing that as a musician, I would say, what I was finding missing. This is definitely a song of protest, no question about it, and it's an angry song of protest. And they were singing it in a way that was, I don't know. It's hard to explain what is in our minds and hearts when we sing this song, but I felt it was a memory of something rather than a protest. So I would assume those people who really sang it during the time of Hirsch Glick sang it with I don't want to say an angry voice, but they were partisans. Partisans were people who fought. Partisans who were people who took it upon themselves to not lie down and get beat up. And here, just another example. And here is a short clip of an Israeli soldier singing, "What do you think?"
Du gehst den letzten Weg, von Schindlen Beine verstellt Leute, kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird kaputt an unser Trott, wir sind da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Show. Es wird kaputt an unser Trott, wir sind da.
And by the way, this clip was brought in this last few days, came from Israel. So it's amazing how that song transmogrifies into a fighting song of the partisans of Vilna, not of Warsaw, mistakenly spoke of by Paul Robeson, but the IDF in Israel are using this kind of thing. So I want to go to that was not the only a protest song, a song of strength within the ghettos. There was a song called Partisaner Marsch, and this is called March of the Partisans. Obviously, these are the Jews that somehow got guns and fought back. Was written by a Shmerka Kaczerginski in the same summer that Hirsch Glick wrote his thing, 1943, where the Vilna in the same, they may have known each other, I don't know, because they were both Vilna writers and partisans. So the Jews in Vilna withdrew to the forests surrounding the ghetto, And so Mr. Kaczynski based his text. These are smart. These are, I should say, intellectually, no, literarily knowledgeable people. So this writer bases this text of his on Hans Eisler and Bertolt Brecht's 1934 song of 9 years earlier called Einheitsfrontlied, the song of the United Front, which became, by the way, a popular anthem of the Communist Party and socialist movements too, making reference to the Vilna Ghetto's, this poem, which is transmogrified by this gentleman, to the Vilna Ghetto's underground, Vereinigte Partisaner Organisatie, United Partisans Orchestra, or I say orchestration. Oh my God, I'm music all the time. United Partisans Organization, which is called FPO, and they say that they go in Yiddish, but they say, "Hey, FPO, we are here in battle, courageous and bold." And I want you to listen to this. This is again, it comes right out of the Zogny Kaimo, but it's an even angrier and actually in some ways happier song. They feel that they know what they're doing. Here we go.
Der Weg ist schwer, wir wissen, der Kampf nicht leicht, kein Spiel. A Partisan sein Leben legt in Schlacht, vorm größten Freiheitsziel. Hey, FPO, wir seinen do, mutige und reiste zum Schlacht. Partisaner noch heint gehen, schlagen dem Feind in dem Kampf an Arbeitermacht. Es seien fest die Glieder, gemuskelt in Stoll und in Blei. Wir gehen bloß auf Heint von einem Ghetto heraus, kedei morgen euch zu bringen die frei. Hey, FPO, wir seien do, mutige und reiste zum Schlacht. Partisaner noch heint gehen, schlagen dem Feind in dem Kampf an Arbeitermacht. Von Schwester, Brüder, wir schweren zu kämpfen bis wann? Mit Hitlers jeder Glied beputzt wird sein, die Waffen von Partisan. Hey, hey, oh, wir seien do, mutige und reiste zum Schlacht. Partisaner noch heimgehen, schlagen dem Feind in den Kampf an Arbeitermacht. Hey, hey, oh, wir seien do, mutige und reiste zum Schlacht. Partisaner noch heimgehen, schlagen dem Feind in den Kampf an Arbeitermacht.
I love it. I love the whole the expression of this singer too. I don't know who sang it actually, but it's wonderful.
Sounds like Theodore Bickel.
It could be. Yeah, it does actually. I will check on that, but it does. But there was I think we all know that there was this, there was nowhere to go. So some of the Jews said, enough, we will become partisans and fight. And you look at the text of this song, and I'm always thinking, I think we all are, of what's going on in Israel right now. That there's a real connection there. It has some biological connection there. There's that same feeling where, what are you going to do? Sit back? And Israel has taken upon itself to be a partisan nation. If someone strikes at them, they need to strike back. They don't strike first, but they strike back because they don't, Israel was constructed. So it's the one place in the world. I mean, let's pray for the United States too, certainly, but the way all the anti-Semitism is going on now, who knows? But Israel is supposed to be the one place more than any other that the Jews are protected. that the Jews are protected. Shir HaPalmach, and this again is an extension of these partisan songs. The Palmach obviously was a branch of Haganah. Before the IPO, I'm thinking about music all the time. Before the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, IPO being the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra, before the Israel Defense Forces became an entity in the 50s, I believe. And so the Palmach was kind of an elite fighting force, as I said, a branch of the Haganah, the underground army of the Yishuv, which is the Jewish community, during the period of the British Mandate for Palestine. So we're talking about the 20s, 30s, and 40s. The Palmach was established in May 1941 by the outbreak of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. It consisted of over 2,000 men. You think it's a lot? No, 2,000 men and women, by the way, in 3 fighting brigades and auxiliary aerial, naval, and intelligence units. I don't know how they divided themselves. Unbelievable. But with the creation of Israel's army, the 3 Palmach brigades were disbanded. This and political reasons compelled many of the senior Palmach officers to resign in the early 1950s, I think maybe 1950. The Palmach really contributed to Israeli culture and ethos, and this song that I'm going to play is certainly a major example. Beyond its military contributions, its members formed the backbone of the Israel Defense Forces High Command for many years and were prominent in politics, literature, and culture. This is Shir HaPalmach, and you have the text in front of you, obviously. But I want you, if possible, to work a little, and I don't want to say harder, but just to really work while you're listening to this song, keeping your eyes on the text. Though the storm is ever mounting, still our heads remain unbowed. We are ready to obey all commands. Obey. The Palmach will win, we vowed. From the Metula to the Negev. If you have any sense of Hebrew, I don't think you'll have a problem. But just keep your eyes on the English when it's going on. This is by the way, David Zahavi, what an incredible composer. I mean, do you know the song Eli, Eli? Do you know he wrote that? He wrote so many other very, I hate to use the word popular, but important Israeli songs over the years. Anyway, so let's listen to this. And some of you know the melody, but it's sung, I think, very beautifully. And I like the darkness of it.
מסביב יהום הסער, אך ראשנו לא יישך. לפקודה תמיד אנחנו, תמיד אנו ההולכים בסך. ממטולד הנגב, מן הים עד המדבר, כל בחור וטוב לנשק, כל בחור על המשמר, נתיב לנשר בשמיים, שביל לפרא בין הרים, מול אויב דרכנו יעל, בין קרות ובין צורים, ראשונים תמיד אנחנו, לאור היום ובמחשך, לפקודה תמיד אנחנו, תמיד אנו ההולכים בסך. ראשונים תמיד אנחנו, לאור היום ובמחשך, לפקודה תמיד אנחנו, תמיד אנו
And so the IDF gets formed and they sing Zogni Kaimol while driving a tank. And they also sing, Tehillim while shooting their guns. It's such an incredible group. I don't even want to say. It's all love. It's all love. Tehillim. It's wonderful, and they're aiming, shooting the guns, and this also came the last few days from Israel. They took I guess that's how they're training. I don't know. It's just wonderful. So obviously there are in the starting in the 1880s and even before that, but certainly the Olim came to Israel any way they can. You can see these dilapidated boats they came on. Many of the boats that they came on were shot at by the British and the Arab population in this area. And who else knows who else who knows whom else, I should say, tried to stop them from coming to Israel. But come they came, and they many of them, I would say the less dati, the less religious of them, formed a chalutz kind of a brigade. I shouldn't say brigade, a culture where they built moshavim and kibbutzim, and it's one of the most exciting facets of the young nation of Israel. And I want to play you. This is a piece called Nieh Kulanu Chalutzim v'Chalutzot. It's a very positive song. I sang it and orchestrated it. Well, whatever, anything I do. But this is it. This is a very short song. Nieh Kulanu Chalutzim v'Chalutzot. That's the only words. We are Chalutzim and Chalutzot. Oh, by the way, the melody is by one of my favorite composers, and I truly mean that, a gentleman by the name of Yoel Engel, born in 1868, passes away, born in Russia or in the Moscow area, I believe, and then passes away in Jaffa in 1927. But he writes, and there are a couple of other songs that I've put on here of his. I adore his music, and pretty much no one knows of him. No one knows of him. Anyway, this is one of his short songs. I have to stop and just say one thing before we go on. That clarinet solo is, I wrote so much music for this woman when we started out, Carolyn Bernstein. And, I have to say, I probably should have told her about this. I was negligent in telling people about this thing, but she, I mean, I wrote solos for her in these kind of songs because she was so, still is, so just naturally musical at what she did. So I just love the way she starts things. She kind of sets the scene. Here we go. And so you see this photograph here. The man at the piano you might recognize. He's an American, His name is Leonard Bernstein, and a real character. Uh, I think the great teacher of music in the 20th century, easily, to the world. He was in April 1947, within 2 days of his first arrival, which was still then Palestine, because it's 1948, Israel becomes independent. Bernstein felt, he speaks about it, that he came to a real profound sense of having come to Israel or Palestine at a very critical juncture in the history of the Jewish people, which is so true. Okay, deeply moved by the Jews that he met in Palestine, his brethren and sisters, and their longing. And this is the story of Israel. It's a story of, maybe that's what I should have titled this lecture: longing and determination. They were longing and determined to have an independent Jewish state promised them by the British, in the Balfour Declaration, which was about, I think it must have been 1917 or something. I think that's when the Balfour Declaration was. So let's say about 30 years before that. He writes to Serge Kouzovitsky, there is a strength and devotion in these people that is formidable. They will never let the land be taken from them. They will all perish first, and the country is beautiful beyond description. So on November 19th, this is 6 months later, the UN orders Israel to withdraw from the Negev. The UN orders Israel to withdraw from the Negev, specifically the town of Beersheba, which had been captured by the Israeli army in October as one of many military steps in the new state's struggle to survive. And so the Beersheba troops, obviously being Israelis, I mean, nothing's new. They defied the UN and stayed put. The very next day, they faced what I would call an unexpected invasion. The 35 members of the Israel Philharmonic, led across the desert by Leonard Bernstein, arriving from Jerusalem by armored bus. It wasn't a prepared thing, but they came just out of the goodness of their heart, I guess, to give the soldiers a break by playing a concert. Now, I don't think they listened to U2 or whatever those rock and roll groups then, but they liked classical music, those people. And, I guess Leonard Bernstein was enough of a rock star that would satisfy most anyone when he would get up on stage. So, there was great suffering in Israel, in Palestine then. And in the course of Israel's fight for independence, some 6,000 Jews perished, and some 20,000 were wounded. So it was really only natural and logical for Bernstein to request orchestral members for another concert for the troops. And those, in this case, they were dug in Beersheba, telling the UN to go somewhere else. So there in the desert, there was an archaeological dig served as the concert venue. You can see this dig. That's part of what you're looking at. The high walls creating a 3-sided amphitheater, and there was a makeshift stage that was constructed. You see, there's not a lot of people there. As reported by a South African writer, Colin Leguman, I'm reading, the well of the amphitheater is alive with chattering soldiers, men and women of the frontline army, Jews from Palestine and the British Commonwealth, and US, Morocco, Iraq, Afghanistan, China, the Balkans, the Baltic, even one from Lapland. And then that was his quote. Local residents of that area also arrived, and some wounded soldiers were transported by ambulance from the hospital nearby. And at 3:30 p.m., the concert begins. Bernstein plays 3 concertos in a row. I mean, wow, what a bonanza for the listeners, but also a first for him. He never did 3 concertos. That was the first, maybe the only time he did it. They were the Mozart 450 in B flat, Kershaw 450, an incredible concerto. the Beethoven First Piano Concerto, which we did last, oh my God, yeah, about a year ago. Wow. Um, and the Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue. Which was kind of like an encore piece for that concert. A violinist supported Bernstein's chair because it was slipping while he was playing, because it was kind of a makeshift platform. The audience size ranged from 1 to 5. It is reported either 1,000 or 5,000. It doesn't really matter. But in any case, when Egyptian planes reported sighting troops massing in large numbers in Beersheba, this is a crazy story. Egypt withdrew its troops from a position menacing Jerusalem in order to redeploy them for what seemed an imminent Israeli attack in the Negev. But they were listening to a concert. They were not thinking about attacking anyone for that thing. And so Chaim Weizmann, who obviously soon would become the first president of Israel, explained the Egyptian reaction by this comment. Who would take time in war to listen to a Mozart concerto? I mean, the whole thing, so anyway, they got by. It's amazing. And this is a true story. I didn't make it up. So, and okay. 1 second. Born in Budapest, Hannah Senesh became a Zionist and immigrated to Palestine in 1939. So she's 18 years old. In 1943, the Jewish agency officials asked her to join a clandestine military operation. She becomes a member of the Palmach, that song that we sang, hop, thumb, bum, bum, but she becomes a member of that group, one of those 2,000 people, and participates in a course for paratroopers. By the way, so just to let you know, these are just pictures of her. There she is in her farm. This is her, and this is her and her brother. Her brother's a little taller than her. She's, I believe, it was taken in 1924, so she's, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old. A beautiful, cute little kid. Anyway, so in March 1944, she's dropped into Yugoslavia in order to aid anti-Nazi forces. She's captured in June after entering Hungary and sent to a prison in Budapest where she was tortured. So since Senesh would not talk, the authorities in Hungary arrested her mother, who was still living in Hungary. And both of them remained silent. And given the chance to beg for a pardon in November 1944, which is 6 months later after she was captured, Senesh chose death by firing squad. So given the, her mother was instrumental in keeping her daughter's memory alive. Her mother publishes Senesh's diary, poetry, and she wrote some plays also. In 1950, her remains were buried in the military cemetery in Mount Herzl. Now, she's obviously an incredibly famous Jewish literary figure. In her hometown in Hungary, my sense is, what I've read, pretty much no one knows who she was. I mean, you mentioned Hannah Senesh, it's a non sequitur. So, well, okay. So there's a song, A Walk to Caesarea, Halicha le Caesarea, also known by the common opening words, Eli, Eli, my God, my God. And the song version, it's a poem in Hebrew, written in 1942. So she's 2 years from her death. And David Zahavi, the man who set the Palmach piece, also sets this piece to music. She wrote the poem when she was a citizen or while residing in this kibbutz called Kibbutz Sdot Yam, which is located a short distance from the Mediterranean, near Caesarea. Well, I would say maybe a kilometer or two east of the Mediterranean. The song is considered one of Israel's unofficial anthems and probably the most played song on Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel. And let's listen to a great singer sing it. A great singer, I feel, great singer. incredible. It's just no words about it. Both the words, the song, and the singer. Bab el Wad in Arabic means the valley gate wadi. It's kind of a more properly a narrow valley or a gorge. If you've traveled, which I think probably most of you have, from Tel Aviv or from the Lod airport, from the Ben Gurion airport to Jerusalem, and if you're going up the hill, and I believe, it's funny, I'm almost sure it's on my left. When you go up there, you see a kind of a red tank that's kind of it's kind of like a bombed out red tank. And so in any event, so it's probably about 23, 24 kilometers before when the mountains start rising, that's pretty much where it is, probably near Beit Shemesh, that area. Okay. So anyway, the road enters into a gorge, kind of passage between the cliffs. Now, this picture is roadblocks placed by Palestinian nationalists. This is in the War of Independence, blocking the road to Jerusalem, stopping the trucks, and reading the ground for Milia's well, there was an ambush there, obviously. So it's called. Obviously, Jerusalem the Arabs tried to separate Jerusalem from the rest of the new state of Israel. And there was a road called the Burma Road. There was a kind of a bypass. The only way to bring food supplies to Jerusalem was to force the blockade, of which you see a blockade by the Arabs, by means of armored cars, many of which were destroyed by fighting at the Bab el Wad. The burnt armored cars that couldn't make it through to Jerusalem, as I mentioned, you can see them on the roadside. They're in red. And this little film will show you. This is the Bab el Wad. By the way, the music is by Shmuel Farshko, lyrics by Chaim Guri. He's a rather famous Israeli poet, not around anymore. But here, the Bab el Wad. Now, I just want to point something out to the lyrics before we hear this. It's in 4 stanzas, right? The last one, "A spring day will come," is spoken, not sung. And what I did here is I made an italics, what do you call it, bold. When it says Bab el Wad, it repeats. I didn't have enough room, so it's a refrain, okay? And the way the singer sings the refrain is Bab el Wad, I remember our names forever, blah, blah, blah. It goes to the end, and then it goes back to Bab el Wad, do remember our names forever. Convoys broke through on the way to the city. So it's all these lines, and then until the city. Just that it keeps you in fact. I want you to, if you can, in addition, looking at this very historic film, to look at the text, because wow. And this talks about those. And I walk passing here silently, and I remember them one by one. Here we fought together on cliffs and boulders. Here we were one family.
פה אני עובר, ניצב ליד האבן, כביש אספלט שחור, סלעים ורכסים, ערב ואת יורד, רוח ים נושבת, אור כוכב ראשון, מעבר בית מחסיר. בב אל וואד, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, שיירות פרצו בדרך אל העיר, בצידי הדרך מוטלים מתינו, שלד הברזל שותק כמו ראי. בב אל וואד, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, בב אל וואד, בדרך אל העיר. פה רתחו בשמש זפת ועופרת, פה עברו לילות באש וסכינים, פה שוכנים ביחד עצב ותפארת, משוריין חרוך, ושם של אלמוני. בבלוות, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, שיירות פרצו בדרך אל העיר, בצידי הדרך מוטלים מתינו, שלד הברזל שותק כמו ראי. בבלוות, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, בבלוות, בדרך אל העיר. ואני הולך, עובר כאן חרש חרש, ואני זוכר אותם אחד אחד. כאן לחמנו יחד על צוקים ותרש, כאן היינו יחד משפחה אחת. בבלוות, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, שיירות פרצו בדרך אל העיר, בצידי הדרך מוטלים מתינו, שלד הברזל שותק כמו ראי. בבלוות, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, בבלוות, בדרך אל העיר. יום אביב יבוא, רקפות תפרחנה, אודם כלנית בהר ובמורד. זה אשר ילך בדרך שהלכנו, לא ישכח אותנו. אותנו בבלוות, בבלוות, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, שיירות פרצו בדרך אל העיר, בצידי הדרך מוטלים מתינו, שלד הברזל שותק כמו ראי. בבלוות, לנצח זכור נא את שמותינו, בבלוות, בדרך אל העיר.
Very powerful. And by the way, you know, from a technical point of view, the orchestration is absolutely wonderful. As is our singer. But I think it may be Shoshana Damari. I'm not 100% sure, but okay. Hare Ut is a song called The Friendship. The state of Israel obviously was established during a war. The United Nations proposed to divide up the land into a Jewish state and an Arab state. I think we've heard that before. The Jews agreed to the proposals, but the Arabs refused and began the war that later, received the name the War of Independence. 1% of all the Jews in Israel during that time were killed during the war. 1%, that's a lot. A third of them were citizens, not soldiers. Therefore, it wasn't surprising that many of the first songs composed in Israel were written about the war. This is a song called Hareut, the friendship. Very, very powerful lyrics. Performed by the Nachal band It's a very, very known military band that performed initially specifically for soldiers. It was an inside performance thing. Almost all the important singers, Israeli singers, up until the 80s, started out as singers in the military bands. And this is what I understand to be the favorite song of Yitzhak Rabin, obviously the prime minister who was murdered in 1995. What does the song represent? The social ideals of the period of the War of Independence, including one's sacrifice for the homeland, the individual's concern for all, and the sanctity of the memory of the fallen, underlying the idea that this story, that ours is less a story of nationalism and more a love story about family and friends. Hareut was written by Chaim Guari, passed away in January 1918. Matter of fact, I when I talked about the previous song, that is also written by Chaim Guari. And the composer, so he writes the music to Bab El Wad and he writes the lyrics to Bab El Wad, the lyrics to Hareut. The composer is a gentleman by the name of Sasha Argov. I don't know how many of you have heard of him, but the last concert that I did, I hope it's not the last concert I do here, the way things are going. I did a number of songs by him. He's a wonderful composer that very few people know about. There's another composer by the name of Moshe Wilensky. Hopefully, we'll hear him a little later in the program. But this man's name is Sasha Argov. He comes to Israel in around 1930, probably in that area, as a teenager from Moscow. His mother's a pianist, I believe. I'm not sure his father or mother's. I think it's his mother, and he's a classically trained pianist. But what does he do when he gets to Israel? Israel's not a place. Oh, you go to there's not a cultured life, even though a lot of people love culture because they're European, or I should say Western culture. And what does he do for the rest of his life? He works on a bank as a teller. And then he's discovered by some really famous singers in Israel. Mati Kaspi. Anyone know that name? You can raise your hand. Mati Kaspi. He's a wonderful singer and a great musician. Interesting gentleman. But anyway, and he writes about 1,200 songs that I'm talking about Sasha Argov. Let's listen to this, but I need you to look at the text, because I could have put the text on it. I didn't have time since last night because I tried to change course there. So, but I put the text over here. It's unbelievable and incredibly poignant in this time. Incredibly poignant. I can't imagine a more poignant song. Let's listen. Already a year, and we almost didn't notice how the time has passed in our fields. Already a year, and few of us remain. So many are no longer among us. But we'll remember them all, the elegant, the handsome, because friendship like this will never permit our hearts to forget. Love, sanctified with blood, will once more bloom among us. Friendship, we hear you with no words, gray, stubborn, and silent of the nights of the great terror. You remain bright and lit. Friendship, as did all your youths, again in your name we will smile and go forward, because friends that have fallen on their souls left your life as a monument and will remember them all. Yerushalayim Shel Zahav was written by Naomi Shemer in 1967, and the song's history plays a big part in how people view it. She wrote it, obviously, in Hebrew, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, for the Israel Music Festival of 1967, which is the year of that war, which took place after Israel's 19th Independence Day celebration. So it was a few weeks before the war. I believe the war was in June, if I'm not mistaken. I remember just being riveted on TV, watching the UN debates and the whole thing. I don't know how many of you, I'm older than most of you, so, you know. So at that time, Jerusalem was torn by war. The old city was entirely in Jordanian hands. Jordanian soldiers, you know, walked the ramparts on the, you know, the walls built by the Turkish, firing all the time at the Israeli homes and at the foot of the walls. And so, despite Israel's being independent, the longing for Jerusalem and its holy cities remained a real painful dream for most of us. And I remember being in Israel from 1959 to 1964, and my father took us to Jerusalem. I think we went once in all those 4 years, but it was a rainy day. We went up by train, which took about 4 hours from Tel Aviv to get up there. The train went 2 miles an hour or something like that. But it was just the most magical day. And I remember it was raining when we got off the train. And my father walked us to whatever the part of the old, you know, close to the old city. There was a thing called Migdal David, where you can go in and light candles. And it was just, I don't know what memories I have. It's just anyway, the memory of the melody of this wonderful song is based on a Basque lullaby, Pella Joxepi. It's a typical Basque name, composed by Juan Francisco Petriarena Genpilar, and Shemer heard a rendition by a guy named Paco Ibanez, who visited Israel in 1962, so 5 years before, performed that exact song to a group that included Shemer and Nechama Hendel, was a wonderful singer. I played some of her stuff. And then Shemer later acknowledged hearing Handel perform the Pello Giuseppe in the mid-1960s before she wrote this song, and that she had, the way Shemer puts it, she had unconsciously based some of the melody on the lullaby. And then Shemer, quite frankly, being Jewish, felt badly about the similarity of her song to that Basque song. But when the Ibanez, the guy who introduced it to her, was asked how he felt about the issue, he's a Spanish gentleman, he replied he was glad it helped in some way, and that he was not angry, nor did he perceive it as plagiarism. So it's interesting, you know. I mean, that's part of the lore of this song. So I wanted you know. The soldiers, when they come to the wall, and these are the two upper ones are historic pictures. I think there's the one on the upper right, upper left is pretty famous. I've seen it before. Anyway, when they came to the wall, that was the song that the soldiers sang. So it was amazing, because it was like a few weeks after it was introduced. Amazing story. The singer that first performed it publicly was a young woman by the name of Shuli Natan, who sang at the Israel Music Festival in 1967, introducing that song. And guess what? She is here to perform this. Shuli Natan, the first performer of Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. She almost trips over the wire before she gets on stage.
אוויר הרים צלול כיין וריח אורנים נישא ברוח הרבעים עם קול פעמונים ובתרנמת אילן באבן שבויה בחלומה העיר אשר גדד יושבת ובליבה בבואי היום לשיר לך ולך לקשור כתרים קטונתי מצעיר בנייך ומאחרוני המשוררים כי שמך צורבת שפתיים כנשיקת שרה אם אשכח לך ירושלים אשר כולה זהב
Seems like a sweet kid. Turning back to now.
ראש העם לשעבר אהרון זאבי פרקש אומרת
This next little snippet is, I believe it came the last few days. This young woman, I don't know, she seems like to be 13, 14 years old. I don't know, probably maybe a little older. I don't know, but it's there was no title to it, but um, it was her reaction to the war. I'd like you to listen to it. I think it's a prayer of sorts.
במצב כזה נגמרו לי המילים, אבא זה קשה, לא מחפשת הסברים, הם לא יודעים מה הם עושים. במצב כזה נגמרות לי התפילות וניגון ישן דופק על הדלתות, דלתות ליבי. והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני מלוך, לעולם ועד. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני מלוך, לעולם ועד. והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל.
We do, I think I'm going to skip this because we did it on another. It's an incredible song, unless everybody yells me to it. But Avigdor Hameiri is one. I just let talk a little about him. An incredible poet, born in 1890, passes away in 1970, and he writes Me'al Piskat Haratzofim. It's incredible stuff, and also he knew Yoel Engel, and Yoel Engel was much older than he was, but well, no, about 20, maybe 20 years older. Hold on, let me think this out. Yeah, about 22 years older. And so he writes this piece called Shnei Mechtavim. Yeah, I'm going to skip it, I think, because I want to end in the next 10 minutes or so. Natan Yonatan writes, wonderful poet, born in 1923, passes away in 2004. Born in the Ukraine, actually, Natan Klein, and he comes to Israel in 1935. So he's about 13 years old, 12 years old, and he settles near Petach Tikva. He's a really wonderful literary figure in Israel. Passes away in 2004. He has a son who was killed in a war, and he has a very close friend of his who is a Palestinian, also a poet, in Ramallah. And for some reason, they buried both of their sons in the same general area. It must have been neighboring grave sites. And they would go together to visit their sons' graves, which is an incredible story, very poignant and painful at the same time. But these gentlemen trusted each other, which seems like a unattainable goal. But he writes a song called "A Wreath of Thorns," and I'm not going to read it, but I want you to hear this. Maybe some of you have heard it before. I've made this video with this wonderful young singer. She's a Sephardic singer, just a wonderful voice and a wonderful way of singing. And this is about his son, the loss of his son in the war.
עם זר קוצים כואב, זה מה שאת אוהבת. אלך אל המדבר ושם אלמד לכאוב, ואם שירים אהבת רק שכתובים באבן, בין הכפים אגור ובסלעים אכתוב, ואז כשנתכסה עם החולות בחושך וספר הדברים בחושך יתכסה, תגידי לי מילים יפות מבכי ואושר, הוא כנראה אהב אותי, האיש הזה. עם זר קוצים כואב, זה מה שאת אוהבת. אלך אל המדבר ושם אלמד לכאוב, ואם שירים אהבת רק שכתובים באבן, בין הכפים אגור ובסלעים אכתוב, ואז כשנתכסה עם החולות בחושך וספר הדברים בחושך יתכסה, תגידי לי מילים יפות מבכי ואושר, הוא כנראה אהב אותי, האיש הזה. ואז כשנתכסה עם החולות בחושך וספר הדברים בחושך יתכסה, תגידי לי מילים יפות מבכי ואושר, הוא כנראה אהב אותי, האיש הזה.
A painful crown of thorns would be your only pleasure. To the desert I will go, there to study pain. His son was, as I understand, murdered, or not murdered. He was in the army in the desert near the Gaza Strip, and just think of all those that music festival where all those young people were murdered. And I look at this film, and all the players are a little younger than me in the orchestra, and oh my God. There are some other songs that I would play, but I want to end this session before midnight. And I think I would ask you to stand for the Hatikva. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.
Joseph, would you just send me the information about Abba Cosby since I sang with him?
Oh, you did? Oh my God. And you
Yeah,
know,
just, no, don't take up time now, Joseph.
I
Just
just
fill
want to
me
say,
in.
I will.
Joseph, it was a wonderful program.
May I just say something before we're over? And I want to, I'm beyond touched. Cantor Ida Ray Kahana.
Is she here? Oh,
Cantor, thank you very much. And I just want to make one note. A couple of songs that you played from the era of the Soviet Union that were very, one especially was very familiar to me. And it was considered a military song. It was never mentioned that it has any relationship to the ghetto, and we never really knew the author.
Are you talking about the melody for the Zog Kainmo?
I'm talking about the Russian, like you characterized it as a very Russian melody, and it is very Russian. It's a beautiful, very Russian. And it was, you gave two versions of singing. And the most popular version was like military.
Right.
Yeah, very familiar.
Right.
Very familiar song, and bad memory because it's all related to the war, not to the Jewish ghetto at all.
Right. No, absolutely. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Joseph, it was wonderful. And Richard, I want you to, I'm sorry for your loss. May her memory be for a blessing.
Thank you so much all for coming. Really, really appreciate it.
Excellent
program, Joseph. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful program. Thank you.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you all being here. Really wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you Joseph. so much.
Lila Tov, Joseph.
Lila Tov.
Amazing, amazing program tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Really. I had to turn turn the corner a little from what I was planning on doing because I just can't. It's a 24-hour thing in my I can't get rid of it. I can't believe that Ida Ray was here. Oh my God. That was she between you and me, no one better to work with. No one better. And she sang here a number of times, and she's just she's a princess. She's and I mean that in the best, the highest, compliment. And what a voice. Oh my God. Anyway, take care.
privileged to sing with her, Joseph.
We did sing with her.
And we bet you we did.
Yep. And she was always as good as gold. Always. She I loved about her. She would other singers would be nervous and she'd just go up there and sing, It's just incredible. Anyway, take care, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.